everybody, and thank you for tuning in this afternoon. This is part 3 of our gardening learning burst. And today we have Liz Driscoll back with us again as promised. After the first episode that you did with us at the beginning of the month, Liz, we had pictures coming in with people taking their children, getting dirt, rolling the dirt around and figuring out what type of soil they actually had, if they had dirt or if they had soil. So that was really cool. And I know people are here again today just so that they can figure out what new stuff you have for us in gardening. So without further ado, I will turn everything over to Liz.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharonda. Thank you all for being here today. I am really excited to share with you some of my favorite garden secrets, a few activities, and, as you have ideas and questions, just throw them out there as we go along. So give me just a second and I am going to screen share. And I know last time, let's see, can you guys see that? Especially if I go to slideshow. How's that? Does that look okay? Slowly but surely.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. So if I look this way, my big screen is this way, but you guys are right here. So what I wanted to do today is I wanted to just walk us through a few kind of gardening basics, a few kind of ideas for engaging our young people into the garden. And I know that y'all probably run a little bit of the spectrum of gardening experience. So hopefully there's some things for if you're just getting started, some ideas if you've been doing this for a while. And then I always feel like one of the biggest challenges with gardening is always like when something goes wrong. So we'll kind of talk through that too, just a tiny bit. And then we can always talk more if you have questions. So I thought we needed to start off, get your chat box ready, and I want y'all to put in the chat box. I actually have to find my chat box. What is your favorite vegetable? It could be your favorite summer vegetable. You could be dreaming. You could be dreaming of cooler temperatures and hoping for something in your fall garden, but throw your favorite vegetable into the chat box. And you can see that this one's totally mine. This is my summer favorite, are these big juicy heirloom tomatoes. If the squirrels haven't gotten them, they're my favorite. I love it. We've got lots of summer veggies. We've got cucumber, eggplant, tomatoes, summer squash. I love that. Okay. So I think, this sort of leads into, we all have our favorite vegetables. Hopefully, a lot of these vegetables you have grown in your garden before, and that's why you love them. And so I always like to center sort of how are we getting our young people to be able to answer this question as fluidly as you all did? How can we turn around and ask our kids, what's your favorite vegetable, and have them be yelling out everything from cucumbers, eggplants, tomatoes, radishes, turnips. That's our goal, is we want them to be fired up and excited about the things that they can grow and eat. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is our edible production. I also want to sort of expand our boundaries of our garden a little bit, because I feel like the richer our spaces, the more diverse our spaces, the more opportunities there are for engagement, observation, and curiosity. So kind of continuing that theme, if y'all were with us 2 weeks ago about observations with soil, we're going to extend that to a little bit observations in the garden, because if you can observe your garden really well, then that makes you and your kids a great gardener. Okay, so I love that you've got, wrong screen, Liz. So I also like to throw out this question of why garden, right? And if anybody want to answer this question, why are you gardening with your young people, or why are you thinking about it? You can throw this in the chat box too, or if you want to unmute and say something, I'd love to hear your ideas.
Well, this is Barbara. I love gardening with the kids just to see their excitement when the plants start to grow, and then, we pick them and bring them inside and cook something with them, and then watch them, eat what we prepare. But I just like the enthusiasm, and because a lot of them don't have gardens, of course. And so it's a way that, and I've never really gardened. So it's been a way over the last few years that we've all been able to learn something new together, and we've all enjoyed doing that.
Oh my gosh, Barbara, thank you so much for sharing. I love that. I love everything you said. I love that you get to share in that awe and that excitement, which are both really positive emotions. And anytime we have young people that have a positive experience around something, they're more likely to want to do that in the future. And so if you're creating this space where kids can go out and feel comfortable learning and being thrilled with what they see, I think that's such a great start. So, using the garden in for so many things, but maybe opening that door into science and scientific observation, science skills, all of that sort of stuff. So I love that. Thank you. And that you learned right along with them, even better. Anybody else want to share?
I like to garden with my son so that he can learn about healthy eating and that it can be fun and taste good. And the biggest thing is that he knows where food comes from.
Yeah, right. He's connected to growing and what you're putting in your body and how that makes us healthy. If we're healthy, how we're ready for anything. And that's such a, I think, key lifelong experience that we are providing for our young people. Oh, little Larry's so lucky to have a mama as a gardener, So that's amazing. Having that family connection too is incredible. Anybody else? I see Robin put watching our cucumbers daily, excitement of how big they're getting. I swear, cucumbers this time of year, like lickety split. You turn, you blink your eye, and already they're so big. And so you guys, you named a lot of it. And so just to, this, I just want to sort of re-say a lot of what you said. We garden because it's so tasty, right? We are out of strawberry season, although I did find one in my garden yesterday. But now we're into blueberries, we're into peaches are starting to come in, watermelons, cucumbers, eggplant, all these tasty things, right? We want kids to have that experience and to know that there's these tasty things that are growing that are good for their bodies. You said it too, all of you said it, that it's fun, right? It's fun as part of doing it with their peers, right? Their other classmates. It's fun doing it with y'all as their teachers. It's fun to do as a family activity. And so all of those relationships are being strengthened in the garden, in part because of the nature of it, right? It's hands-on, you're doing something together. Everyone has these tasks to do and you're doing it together. Sorry, my computer always gets so touchy. Okay. Good exercise. We talked about healthy eating, healthy bodies, but this is something that's great to do. I just got off, Sharonda knows, a week-long horticulture camp that I do for teenagers here at NC State, and we were working them hard. We were getting them planting sweet potatoes, planting strawberries, getting that exercise, being used to being outdoors, and working our bodies. So family time, we mentioned, how precious, how many of you, I wonder, maybe gardened with a grandparent? I have just the best memories of being in my Grandpa Cooley's garden, picking green beans, helping them weed. And so, how do those memories happen in the garden and relationships develop? Really good food, right? You've harvested it, you bring it in. That's also more family activities, more activities that you can do as a classroom and the skills that go with it in terms of everything from, in this case, they're washing the carrots, so it's food safety skills, to knowing the right things to eat, to learning how to work together and have teamwork, all come in from that. And so to sum it up, there's so many good things that happen when we are in the garden, right? We've got young people that are developing positive science attitudes. We need more young people in the STEM fields. And so that's really critical. We need young people that are caring for our natural resources. We talked a lot about that 2 weeks ago in terms of caring for our soils and building that ethic of stewardship. Responsibility, right? Everyone is taking care of their watering, their weeding, being responsible for their garden. They're working together to do that. All of these are different positive impacts that being in the garden can have for young people. Okay, so hold that into your mind, right? And when you're thinking about when it's 95 degrees out and it's so hot and you're like, why am I doing this with my young people? That's why, because they're just building a lifetime of skills and positive impacts. And so if any of y'all are doing things like writing grants or having to justify your gardens to administration or whatever that looks like, then those are all researched outcomes of gardening with young people. One of my favorite things, though, that Barbara kind of mentioned was that awe and that excitement. There's so many wonders in the garden. And when we think about taking time to observe and watch those wonders, that really builds those science inquiry, curiosity, and wonder skills, right? So that's really, that's totally where I'm coming from as a science educator. That's one of my goals, is I really want them to see all these cool things, take the time to see all these cool things, and then ask those why questions. So I don't know, I think I may have talked to you all about some of this, but this is absolutely one of my favorite plants. This is a native jewelweed, or what is the impatiens? It's a type of impatiens, native impatiens. I can't remember what the species name. Hopefully there's a picture in here, but you see it especially on the hiking trails in the fall. It's flowering right now, and it'll start fruiting in late August, early September. And then this is what happens. Okay. So we're kind of talking about what else can we observe in the garden. So see if this comes through for y'all. Can you see that? Did you see that? Hopefully you can see that. Will somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see that?
Yes, I thought.
Yes.
Thank you. I totally needed that information. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so I love this. Again, I'll send this to Sharonda and she can share it out with y'all. This is just a YouTube video from some other super sweet plant nerd. But what happened for me was I was at Michigan State. We have a horticulture garden there, and we have a special garden called our Michigan 4-H Children's Garden. And I think I might have a picture of it here in the next slide. Oh, we're going to go on a garden tour. So maybe this is a little bit later. I'll show you a picture. But in this children's garden, I was leading did I tell you this story already? I can't remember. I'm gonna tell you again because I can't remember anything anymore. But we had a partnership with the local area Head Starts, and they would bring out their classes multiple times to the garden throughout the year, throughout the whole season. So they saw the garden in the fall a couple times, in the winter a couple times, spring a couple times, and in the summer a couple times. Well, the first time these little 3- and 4-year-olds came out to the children's garden, I was walking them around, and I was like, and this is one of my favorite plants. And I did that. I pressed that jewelweed seed pod for them. The seeds exploded all over, and there was kind of an audible gasp. And then all of a sudden, right, they're like, and seeds are flying everywhere. And to me, I think Barbara, you said it, like, you just love sharing in this excitement and that awe with the kids. And that was my aha moment. I saw wonder through a child's eyes, and I just was hooked at how cool that was. And so here's kind of our first sort of activity, little garden exploration. Is I wanted to take you on a garden tour and show you, just give you a couple examples of some plants and how, when you're making the time to do some noticing together, and how you can build that skill of noticing, how magic can happen, right? And how all of these questions can happen. We often will have something called a wonder wall in our classroom. And so as kids are seeing cool things and asking these questions, you can capture it on the wonder wall. Like, why are these little droplets of water on the very end of this leaf? So this is a lady's mantle, just a regular perennial that you can put in your garden. It has nice yellow flowers, but the coolest thing about it is that in the morning, these hydathodes, which are these little glands at the end of the leaves, will emit these little droplets of water. And sometimes these droplets of water will gather in the hairs of the leaf, and it magnifies whatever is in the leaf. So you might see the leaf hairs, you might see if there's a bug trapped in that water, you can see a little bug or dots of like, if something had eaten the plant. And it's just the coolest thing. And so often, right, we're so busy, we're always just going through life so fast, so quick, getting it done, making whatever it is happen, that these are sort of those little magic moments that are worth stopping for. So my challenge to y'all is, how are you doing your garden noticing with your young people, which I know you already are, but how can you enhance it? So how are we giving these littles the tools to be, the next generation of scientists? So I just want to encourage you to think about things you already have. For example, anybody know what plant family this plant is in? You probably grow in a fall or spring garden. Anybody, can you see that closely? Especially if you look at an individual flower. There's 4 petals to each of these flowers. There's 4 stamens, or the male part of the flower. Any ideas? Anybody? How about raise your hand if you want to use that little emoticon or emoji in the box. Raise your hand if you have ever grown a vegetable in the cabbage family or the brassica family, Brassica ACE. Anybody ever grown one of those? The old family name, I know you have, so you don't really have to raise your hand, but the old family name before it was Brassica, it was Cruciferae. And crucifer or cross, if you look at these flowers closely, you'll see that it makes a cross. And so what's really fun about this is like an Asian cabbage green. I don't know what it might have been, but something that we would probably eat as a leafy green. And so when it starts to get hot, those like, especially in the spring, these plants will bolt, and that's the initiation of the flowering process. Well, what's cool about this is, we're normally eating it as a green, but when it flowers, you can also eat the flowers. You also see pollinators start to come. You can harvest the seeds as a part of it, and all just like sort of in this process of like, how can I take what I already have and just maybe notice it a little bit more? And so that was just kind of the theme of things. Maybe it's the middle of the summer, and I wonder if any of y'all have ever seen any of these on your tomato plants. This is a tomato hornworm. If you all of a sudden go out to your garden and you see one day a bunch of what looks like healthy green tomato leaves, and then the next day half of them are gone, it was probably the work of the tomato hornworm. One, I love them because when you pick them, they hiss at you. So if you see them, pick them up by sort of like by the scruff of their neck, and they'll hiss, which is a lot of fun. Sometimes they'll spit too. At least tobacco hornworms do, but I know we're not growing tobacco. But they're kin, they're like caterpillar kin. So what happened here, you may know this story already, but these are actually pupa cases of a parasitoid wasp. And so what happens, we've got our pest, the tomato hornworm, and then we have this beneficial insect, which is a certain type of wasp. And that wasp will actually take her stinger, which is an ovipositor, and she lays a bunch of eggs inside the guts of this hornworm. This is like a little horror story, but I love these stories so much. So then those the larvae emerge, they start eating the insides of that tomato hornworm, but not so much that it kills the tomato hornworm. And then the more I talk about, the more gruesome I realize it is, but but also kind of interesting, maybe with your slightly older group. Then they form a pupa, or their cocoon on top of the hornworm, and then they emerge, and then it's a natural way that pests are being controlled in your garden. And so, again, sort of my challenge to you is, if we're noticing these things, we're like, what's going on? What's happening? And instead of, having a reaction of like, well, we've got to get rid of it, how cool is it to where we might be able to see something like this happen and see, a natural naturally occurring pest suppression in the garden. So anyway, so I love this story. I just think that this is such an amazing thing to witness. Even though you don't want your tomatoes decimated, it's really cool if you end up with these parasitizing wasps. So some other stories, maybe you're growing things like blackberries or raspberries. This is a blackberry flower and one of our native bees, probably one of our algochlorids. I'm not sure, it's hard to sometimes tell which one it is. And it's pollinating. And so thinking about that too is if we begin to notice, then we're starting to see these relationships, right? Between the flowers that will eventually bear fruit, but they require a pollinator to get there. And so, what other things could you grow too that could be interesting that prompt, noticing? And so sunflowers are a favorite of mine. I just think looking at these geometric patterns that, if you guys ever think back to the old days when your math teacher in high school talked about like Fibonacci's numbers and how those patterns in math happen. And so thinking about that, then thinking about those same sunflowers that also have some more pollinators. And I love this picture because you can see that pollen on that honeybee, so it's getting nectar out of the flower with its proboscis right here. I don't know if you guys can see my my mouse moving, but it's going into these individual flowers as well as getting pollen and passing that from flower to flower. I'm sorry if you totally hear my 112-pound dog. And sometimes when we're in the garden, the things we see aren't as miraculous or as cool as something like a sunflower. But we see a leaf that should be green, but then actually is a little bit yellow. And so then plant problems to me are one of the neatest things in the garden because it really builds a skill set of problem solving and critical thinking, many of which I wish more of our undergrads at NC State had. And so if you're looking at this, naturally the question is going to be like, well, what's going on? What's wrong with this plant? And so then what can you do to then figure out how to solve this problem? Gathering ideas, from the kids. Well, what do plants need? Does it have enough sun? Is our soil have everything it needs? Is there enough nutrients in our soil? You can do things like a soil test. And really what you would find in this case is that this is probably an iron deficiency in your bean where we have this, what we call chlorosis, interveinal chlorosis, where in between the veins, it's yellow. And that's because it's not getting enough iron. You don't need to know that it doesn't have enough iron, but you can be like, are there bugs on here? Are there animals eating it? Is it, what are the environmental requirements? Are they getting it? And trying to figure out, what the problem might be. Okay. So that was sort of part of the garden tour. I guess I got carried away because I have a few more slides for you, but hopefully these are all, I'm going to wrap it up here with a little bow. This is a flower called chocolate flower, Burlandaria. It's native to southwestern part of the United States, and it literally smells like a Hershey's Kiss in the morning. So everybody's a little grumpy, a little bit tired. You got to take them out to the garden and just have a little sniff of the chocolate flower, and your day is so much better. And then if they're still grumpy, then just, grow some lamb's ear, which is soft as a blankie, and everyone will be happy all day long. So kind of my point of this little section was twofold, right? One, again, sort of, just how often are you taking garden tours? How often are you noticing on those garden tours? What else can you do to enhance your garden, maybe outside of your vegetable plots, where you can build in more of these interactions? And I know that's not always possible. I know especially you might just be starting. And so to grow your garden out bigger might be something that you're not quite ready for. But I just encourage you to think, what else might be possible that we could do in our garden? Because the greater diversity of plants you have, the greater diversity of things you'll see happening. You're building a complex ecosystem, which I think is just way cool. So, and then I was like, burdock is really cool. It's where Velcro came from. And so I think I threw that one in there like, I could keep going on and on actually about all the cool plants that there are out there. In this case, Venus flytrap. I just came from a nursery tour last week where one of the nurseries we went to had a bog garden. You could do a bog garden as a container garden if you're like really looking to level up for your gardening. So I think I had put this in here for my advanced gardeners. And let me just show you this super quick. I think it's like 20-second video. Can you all see that okay? Yeah, okay, thank you. Is that amazing? I love plants that move. That's like, I'm just a sucker for it. We'll just watch it one more time. It's like a little beetle just trying to do its thing, and then it's gonna be nibbled on by this Venus flytrap. And so this also begs the question, you know, why are plants eating bugs? And usually they grow in really nutrient poor environments, and so you can't get nutrients in these really wet, soggy soils. They all sort of leach out, and so they were finding it elsewhere. And so anyways, just something for you to think about. Trying to move on to the next slide and getting stuck here. There we go. Okay, so here is a little activity for you, and I promise by Friday I'll send my soil stuff and this stuff to Sharonda so that y'all can have it. Has anybody ever made something called a zine? These I think are really cool, very easy, and you can make as many as you want. So we're gonna make one together. I'll send you the actual how to do it. But if you have a piece of paper or want to go run and get a piece of paper, we can do this together, okay? So what we're gonna start off with is you're gonna take your piece of paper and you're gonna hot dog fold it, okay? So the steps kind of go like this, fold, 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 okay? So then we're going to fold it in half, hamburger fold, okay? So we're gonna fold it not along the length, but horizontally, okay? Then I want you to fold it one more time in half. Also, kind of this ends up being sort of a hot dog or a hamburger fold to me, okay? So you guys get all of that? So now you open it up. And if you open up your piece of paper, you have 18 squares. I think you can kind of see that with my camera, okay? So now what I want you to do is I want you to fold this in half again, but I want you to do the hamburger fold. So we're kind of at this step right here. You can number this if you want, but we can also kind of we can come back to that, okay? So you do this, then you grab some scissors and you are going to just make a cut down on the fold. This is my, hold on, let me show you again. So here it is, folding it. This is this part right here. I'm going to cut it on the folded side. So this is kind of like a spine, right? So I'm going to make one cut. Try to do this looking at you on that folded side. So you're not cutting actually through the paper. Then when you open it up, you've got a hole right in the middle of your paper. I can totally see you through this hole. Now I want you to fold it down again. Okay. And then what happens is this pops open. Like any of you are good at origami, you'll be good at this. If you're not, sometimes I already ruined one piece of paper today remembering how to do this because it's been a while, okay? So you're going to take that little pop and you're going to push it in. And then what happens is you now have a book. So I'm going to fold it. I'm going to kind of make creases where all my folds are. And then can you see that? So now I have a book. So I've got a cover. I've got a bunch of pages just like that. And so you've made this really simple book. And now you can use this as like your little science noticing book. So here, I'm just going to color a quick, my marker. Don't you hate that when you go to get, especially your Mr. Sketch marker, and then somebody didn't put the cap on and now it's, oh my gosh, this is terrible, y'all. All right, so I've got my like quick little strawberry here, right? And you can say Liz's notebook. So now let's go to the first stop in our garden and let's do a little sketch. And I know that your ages range dramatically of how old you are. So maybe this is more like your 4-year-olds are doing some sketching and maybe doing a tiny bit of writing. Maybe you have a word, like let's go back a couple of slides here on our garden tour. All right. So maybe what they're writing is soft, maybe they're writing, however you guys decide to do it, smells good, and they draw a picture, right? So you kind of get this idea, but I love these little zines. It's just a quick, fun way to be able to keep track of like little garden notebooks. And it's not so big that it's intimidating to have to fill in all of those pages. And it's really cheap and easy too. So you're not putting in a lot of investment of resources in it. Okay. So garden zines. And I want to, I'm not sure if this is let me see if I have, this is the spot. I think I have actually, it's a spot later on. So this is actually part of kind of an online garden program that a lot of us in Cooperative Extension had put together. And so this idea and others are in there, and I'm going to share it to you, with you, but I think it's on a different slide. So I'll get there. Okay. How many of y'all do garden journals already? Very fun, very easy. Okay, so remember how I said what are you growing in your garden? And then maybe how can we think about pushing the boundaries a little bit? And so if you're like, you know what, every year, all we're doing is growing tomatoes. So when I was at the Michigan 4-H Children's Garden, this is the entrance to the garden. So you can see like big welcoming sign, really colorful. Kids know that this is a garden for them. They know that they are invited to sniff, to skip, to dance, and do touch and do all the things in the garden. And so what I loved about this garden is it was centered on different themes. So we had, you guessed it, a pizza garden. I wish I had an up close picture because we actually had it in concrete. It was a raised bed in concrete, and the concrete curb formed the crust, and we had stamps of like mushrooms and peppers and stuff in the concrete. It's a magical place. If you are ever in East Lansing, Michigan, you need to go to this children's garden. You'll be inspired. So we had a pizza garden. We had a Three Sisters garden. So this is, a story of indigenous gardening where we have corn that grows tall and straight. Okay, we've got squash down here. You can see my thing, the squash all growing down in here. That squash covers and shades the base of the plants so that we're minimizing weeds. And then we've got nitrogen. It's not looking too hot right here, but we've got a vining pole bean growing up that corn. So the corn provides support for those pole beans, but the pole beans don't grow so much that they take over the corn. Corn is a big nitrogen user, but what do beans do? Beans provide nitrogen because they have a symbiotic relationship with rhizobium bacteria in the soil, and those bacteria will actually fix nitrogen from the soil into a form that's usable by the plants. And so how cool is that? So you can say Three Sisters Garden as your theme, right? Then it invites the question of, well, who are the three sisters? What do they do? What does it look like to understand different cultures and the way that they've gardened and the way that they know and hold knowledge. For our pizza garden, it was, okay, everything that's going to be in here, we're going to grow that we can use for a pizza. So I don't know how many of y'all ever use theme gardens, but I think it's a brilliant way to take a big idea and translate it into the details for kids. We used to have a feathered friends garden. And so all the plants that we would grow in there would be plants for nectar for hummingbirds. We would plant seed plants. So there might be things like sunflowers and thistles and purple coneflower, which has or echinacea that has a lot of seeds for goldfinches. And so what are the things that your kids are interested in? Maybe they come up with the theme that they want to be able to have for their garden. There's so many good books, aren't there, for children's gardening? They just keep getting better every year. This one is a very old one, but I love it because it talks about growing a sunflower house. So, if you've ever grown a sunflower house, kids love to hide places, don't they? They love bean forts, bean teepees. They love when they can be in a squash tunnel. In this case, it's a sunflower house. And so they just plant, a bunch of tall sunflowers in a circle, and you can put mulch on in the middle, and those sunflowers just grow and grow and grow until you end up having a fort where you can have tea parties, you can read books. And this is that magical part of how we use the garden, right? And so there's so many theme gardens. This is just a list of some of them that we had at our children's garden, and a couple of more that I've seen, and it's endless. It could be whatever, and it can be seasonal, right? So one year you're doing a pizza garden, the next year that you're doing a stir fry garden. What are your kids interested in? What are you interested in? And then how are you being intentional about those fun plants that might go into the theme garden? So I was thinking about, we used to have we had a rainbow garden. So we had a painted concrete with all the colors of the rainbow. We had a pot of gold planted with marigolds, of course, at the end of the rainbow. But then we were planting all different kinds of vegetable crops. So if you've ever grown rainbow carrots or purple potatoes, having these treasures that you can dig for that are the different rainbows of the garden. So let me see, moving on here. I think this was a little bit of a transition too, to talk about if we are growing vegetables, maybe there's some vegetables that have stories that might also be fun to try. There is a type of kale. This is in the cabbage family called walking stick kale. I've grown it before. I've only ever been able to get it to 5 feet. This guy looks like he's probably 15 feet up in the air, but it just keeps growing, and you keep harvesting the leaves as it grows. And then that could be a really fun way to invite young people to think about gardening. Have you ever grown noodle beans? Noodle beans, yard-long beans, are really popular in a lot of Asian food dishes. And so that might be something to think about. There's something called a pretzel bean. So one of my favorite pastimes is to just haunt the seed catalogs as they come out on a cold winter's day, and you can dream about what's possible in your garden. This is Tom Thumb popcorn. It's about a little bit like maybe the size of 2 of my thumbs. I've got little tiny hands. So that could be really fun. There's glass corn, this beautiful colored corn that you could grow and think about too. Warty pumpkins. I mean, how amazing are the pumpkins that have come out recently? I love these so much. And then, this is the pumpkin that Cinderella took to the ball. And so think about sort of, again, like these stories, these little secrets. What are the things that these plants have that you can be growing? Okay. I'll send you this too. This is a list of just some of my favorite vegetables. And then it's these are the cultivars. So you might call them variety, but they're signified by a single quotational apostrophe. And that tells you what it is. Thumbelina. If you've ever grown a Thumbelina carrot, again, like no bigger than my thumb. There's something about tiny vegetables that are adorable. And so you might want to think about it. What about the different types of gourds? Long-handled dipper has been used in cultures as a way to get water from a stream or a spring. So many fun things on here that you can grow. Okay, so be thinking about that. And now you're like, all right, seriously, Liz, let's get down to the business of gardening. Okay, we've already planted our garden. It's the middle of the summer. What are you talking about? And so actually, let's just wait for just a quick beat. A lot of gardens look like this, right? A lot of gardens. This is at a really sweet school that we've worked with for a long time down in Goldsboro. And a lot of our gardens are in these raised bed structures. And so how many of y'all have you ever done paper towel gardening or square foot gardening? Have any of y'all done that? If you are on the newer end of the spectrum of gardening, this is one of my favorite ways to get started. So it's really easy to take these beds and you basically mark off 12 inches. You can have the kids help you measure, right? Every 12 inches, every foot, you're gonna maybe put in a little nail, or you're gonna staple down a yarn. And I wish I had a picture of this. I'll have to think about that next time. And you basically end up making a grid just kind of like this. Imagine this was my garden. Imagine these are square foot, even though this actually represents 12 inches by 12 inches. So what it tells you is it tells you how many vegetables will fit into a square foot. And so this is about spacing. How many times have you gardened where your enthusiastic little gardeners have maybe like put all the seeds out and then you have everything growing on top of each other? And we know when everybody grows on top of each other, like they get mad, they get hot, they don't grow as well. I'm speaking from experience when my own kids are crowding me and I'm ready to push them away because it's so hot. Well, plants are just the same way. They've got to have a certain amount of spacing, and that's what this tells you. So Mel Bartholomew was the gardener who kind of pioneered it, and there's been a lot of sort of different things that have come with it. So what you're going to do is, again, I've got this for you too. You're going to get your paper towel, and most paper towels are a square foot, 12 inches by 12 inches. I seem to be like to hold holding up these blank things in front of you. And what you can do is you can give this to your kids, and it's just a matter of folding your paper towel. So if we're doing something like carrots, the spacing for carrots is you need 16 of them in just 1 square foot. And so you can fold your paper towel 4 times until you get 16 squares, right? And actually the rattier your paper towel, the better this is, because, oh, you can't really see it. Let me just draw this line for here you real quick. So I'm just gonna draw the lines where I folded so you can see this better, okay? So each one of those lines is where I have folded. Well, now what you do is you can give your kids some glue. Again, thinking about age appropriateness here. Maybe you are doing the glue for them, and you're going to put a drop of glue on each of those squares. So I'm going to show you with my black marker where I put a drop of glue, okay? You see I've got 16 spots in there, okay? So in each of those, that's where you would put a seed. I have some carrot seeds right here. I did not organize my seeds, but I've got them in a box, and carrots right here, okay? So I would take these carrots, you open them up. All right. I'll take my scissors, open this up. And then you're gonna try to put a little carrot on each of those spots, or maybe a radish, whatever it is. You can't really see this, so I don't know if this is really useful or not, but you kind of see that right here. Those were the carrot seeds I put down. Once you do that for all of them, then you can actually plant this right into the soil. Sometimes if you have really, this is like Bounty or something, you can take a pencil and you can kind of poke through where those holes are so that the seeds grow a little bit better. But if you have a really nice ratty paper towel, that will decompose pretty well once you wet it. So you plant this right into the ground, add some soil on top, just a little bit, water it in, and your plants will start to grow. And you can do this, and it's been figured out for all sorts of vegetables. So for things like snap beans, spinach, and turnips, you only need 9. And so you're going to, again, take your paper towel and you're just going to make a couple of folds till you get those 9 squares, and then you can space it out. So if you don't want to use it as a paper towel gardening, then you go back to here, you take yarn or string and you make a grid, and then you can just do it right into the soil if you want to. So lots of different variations. I did this jam board, but I also see that I got, I was talking quite a bit. And so maybe what I can do is demonstrate this, or if you guys want to do it, we can totally do it. Let me, let me get the link here and do this, put it in the chat box. All right. So if you want to go to that jam board, I'll go here. What I'm going to have you guys do is, does that come up for you? Do you guys see the jam board with all the different vegetables? Thank you. So this, what you want to do, because I don't have copies, you actually want to come up here. You can see my cursor. There's 3 dots in this upper right-hand corner. You get a drop-down menu. I don't know if you can see it, but in those 3 dots, it'll say make a copy. And then you can totally make a copy for yourself to use. And this is, I also have this as a handout. So this part right here gives you all, you know, how many veggies per square foot. So for cauliflower, it's just 1. Tomato is just 1 per square foot. For some like pumpkins and melon, it's 1 seed per 2 square feet. So then you can come over here and you're like, oh, well, let's give this a try. I want to grow, let's see, how about some broccoli? So I'm not sure how many broccoli need to go per square foot. So I'm going to come back here, find broccoli, and there's just 1 broccoli per square foot, if you can see that. Let me just get my little pen here. Okay, there's broccoli, 1 broccoli per square foot. Now I'm going to go back to my garden and now get my little, I'm just going to make more broccolis, and then you can plan out your garden this way. I realize this is probably something that I kind of made it as a planning for you all, but if you have some older kids that you feel like could do this and they could make their own plan, or you could always have these as cutouts, as sort of manipulatives, and then you can plan your own garden that way. Okay. So I'll leave you guys to do that on your own if you want to kind of plan out your garden. I just did cool season, thinking about the upcoming fall. You already probably have your summer garden planted. And so you can try this out if you want. So an easy way, if you are not quite sure how many plants go, you know, for the garden area, this is a great way for planning and doing that. Okay. So now just a couple more things that I wanted to show you is I wanted to kind of have a spot where it's like, all right, we are in the middle of summer. What do we have to do to keep our garden growing? What are some things that we can be doing? You know, really the big things in my mind for a successful garden is making sure you're keeping it watered. Summer is kind of hard sometimes. We'll go for a month without water, and then we get afternoon thunderstorms every day, you know, for a week. And so keeping an eye on your soil moisture is good, making sure you are weeding, having a fun time with that with your young people, maybe mulching so you don't have a lot of weeds, and then thinking about how you keep enriching your soil. So I am going to also put this in the chat box. This was something that we did in COVID when we weren't allowed to garden with anybody, but gardening was okay outside with your family. Is we had, I'm gonna just go to this. Maybe I just, oh, I already have it up. It will pop up. So what we did was we created kind of this 9-week program where it went from sort of seed to harvest. And in this case, it was a spring program. So we were doing it for salad gardening. But in here are a lot of different sort of both like videos and activities that you might be interested in sort of browsing and trying everything from what does it look like to start seeds. And so starting the seeds, oh, okay, clearly I need to fix that. But starting seeds in your garden. But then also, what else are you doing while you're waiting for things to grow? And so maybe you're growing microgreens. Maybe you're doing seed germination necklaces. I think I've done that before with some of y'all. And, you know, the next week is like getting your garden started. Sorry, it's taking a little time. Making little mini greenhouses to start your seeds. Load, hurry up and load. I won't go through all of this, but some of these have like little instructional videos that you and your kids can watch. And then they've got the little activity sheets. And then right here, you can see here's our vegetable planting guide. You know, how do we make our own pots and that sort of thing. Okay, so that's a resource I thought that y'all might want to do. And especially as we get down into things like garden care, maybe you want to make sure that you are making a rain gauge so that you know how much water your garden is getting. And so these are just some additional resources. Okay, so moving on. Anybody have any questions about garden care that they want to ask right now? You know, my big, I guess, advice when you are gardening is, again, kind of goes back to observing what's going on in your garden. And when you have a plant problem, how can you put those little brains to work in trying to solve it together, and sometimes it doesn't matter if you solve it or not. It's just the process that you go through. Okay. So I know we're getting towards the end, but I wanted to give you a few more things to be thinking about, because when your garden is growing, you can only water and weed so much. You can only make so many tomato hornworms hiss. What else can we do? And so I thought it would be fun to make you guys sing a song. Have I introduced you before to one of my favorite bands, the Banana Slug String Band? Last week, I was totally remiss. We did not do Dirt Made My Lunch, which is one of their hits. This is another one of their hits, Root, Stems, Leaves, Flowers, Fruits, and Seeds. And I love it. They are a band out of Santa Cruz, California, and they just have really great garden educational songs. And so I thought we could do this one together, where if we're learning about specifically different plant parts, this is a great way to start it off. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate, and then you guys can do it along with me if you want. We'll kind of play it. So we talk about the 6 plant parts, okay? And so we'll do, you know what? I totally have my running shorts on. I just have my polo up top, so you're going to see my running shorts. But so I have, you can't really see, that's okay. So here's what I do is I go roots and I go down to my toes, okay? And I sort of wiggle my hands. So I go roots, and then I go stems, like I'm a stem, right? And then I say leaves, and then I say flowers, fruits, and seeds. So it could be like flowers, fruits, and seeds. So roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, seeds. Okay? And this is the chorus. And then it goes that 6 plant parts that plants and people need. So I thought we could do this together. Let's see if the sound comes through. Okay, look at it. A little good afternoon jam here. All right, and stand up and do it with me. We start off with the chorus and then kind of improv dance to the verse.
Root stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. 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 That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need.
Anybody doing this with me, or just making a fool of
Roots
myself?
on plant in the ground, they gather up the water that falls around. There's a root inside of me, because a carrot is a root that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. The stem is an elevator up from the ground. The water goes up and the sugar back down. And there's a stem inside of me, 'cause celery is a stem that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. The leaves are the kitchen where the food is done. The breathing air catch rays of the sun. And there's a leaf inside of me, 'cause lettuce is a leaf that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Root stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. 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 That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. The flowers are dressed so.
So thank you for dancing with me. I love a good dance party, especially at 4 p.m. Y'all, so I'm the worst singer in the world, but thank goodness for the Banana Slug String Band, because they are way better than I am. I love that, because who heard the lyrics of the verse if I wasn't being too loud? Could anybody hear those lyrics? What was the big picture of what they were saying? there's a root inside of me because carrot, that was me eating a carrot, is a root that I eat. And so it goes through each of those different plant parts and it names, what all the different plant parts are that we can eat. And so a lot of times what we're doing when we're growing a garden is we're growing all of these different edible plant parts. So we're teaching them what the different plant parts are, what they do, and which ones we might be able to eat. So this is just kind of a fun little energizer, gets kids moving and thinking about it. Oops, I didn't mean to start that again. I always do that. Next slide. And so how fun would it be to go on a plant part scavenger hunt? Maybe you have pictures of the different plant parts that you've made on a printable scavenger hunt. Maybe you just send them out and say, can you find these 6 plant parts? In this case, these kids found these giant sweet potatoes that are end row sweet potatoes. So they had a little more nutrients, a little more sunlight. And so they're a little bigger and they're like, this is amazing. So they found a root, right? And that's a root that they can eat. But we've done it where even in like the dead of winter, you can still find all the different plant parts. They might just not be edible ones. But so this is something that I love to do that I think is fun and another way to explore and use the garden. Oops, maybe, my gosh, this is a total stock photo. Who makes lunches like this? Not me. Thank goodness for school lunch is all I have to say. But some very artistic and creative person made this cute little plant part sandwich. And so we've got the roots, we've got little carrot flowers, we've got where's our stems? Maybe we don't really have a stem. You can eat nasturtium flowers, nasturtium leaves. We've got some lettuce here. We've got the seeds from our wheat. We've got the fruit from our tomatoes. And I mean, look at this adorable egg. Who does this? But I love it. I'd be delighted if this was my lunch. So you could have a lunchbox scavenger hunt. If y'all are serving lunch, they could look at their lunch tray and decide what it is. If you have an opportunity to have access to like a refrigerator or a pantry and you wanted to turn them loose, maybe they could find those plant parts too. And making that connection from the garden back to what they're eating, back to what might be in the kitchen. So, or this is maybe an activity that they do at home to see if they have these different plant parts. Okay, kind of a fun little activity. Oh my gosh, so hot. So I think what are the other things to do? So I mentioned this already on that Just Grow It. If you haven't done microgreens before, they are delightful. You just basically are starting a bunch of seeds. This is a short list of different seeds you can do it from. And as soon as those seeds start to grow, they are edible. So you can harvest them and eat them. So very similar like sprouts. We're usually growing microgreens, not in soil. We're just growing them in some kind of medium like coconut fiber, or even if you have like vermiculite or perlite, something that's like a sterile growing medium. And that's what it is. So as soon as these start to grow, this is all the directions for you. This is what they look like. And you can harvest them and eat them. So little tiny basil seedlings, little tiny, I don't know if those are like radishes. These look like pea shoots. These look like sunflower seeds. You can just nibble on them. So it's just another way to bring the garden inside when it's so hot, and they might start to hate gardening if you have them out in 95-degree heat. So anyways, we're just trying to keep it fresh. And that's it. That was a lot of just ideas I wanted to throw at you. And I would be glad to answer any questions, like things that you have, plant problems. Liz, how do you get 1 million kids to water the garden? What are the tasks they can do? I'm glad to talk through any of that, but I thought it might be fun to kind of do a little garden tour and just think about all the things that we can find and do in the garden. So with that, I'm gonna be quiet, open it up for questions. And I'll stop this, stop sharing. There we go. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I know it's the afternoon and you've been working hard all day, and this is one more thing.
Well, I do want to thank you too, Liz, for giving us your time in this during the afternoon as well. And like you said, we're opening up the floor now. So if anyone has any questions that you would like to ask or comments, please let us know. Right now, I see from Early, thank you so much. Excellent learning burst. I also see from Delane, thank you. I also saw cute song from Efrain.
Oh my gosh. Yep. I will make sure that Sharonda has a PDF, and I'll send PDFs of those different activities as well. So you'll have those by Friday. I'll get it to you by Friday.
So any other questions about the paper towels, the microgreens, any of the information earlier?
If you do have a lot of questions about sort of garden care, if that was kind of what you were hoping for and I didn't touch on it a lot, do here, let me just put my email in the chat box. Let me know. Hopefully a lot of y'all are connected with your local cooperative extension office, and in those offices, if you haven't made the connection already, there's a horticulture agent, an agriculture agent. Most counties have extension master gardener volunteers, all who are trained in a lot of the nitty gritty. So if you're like, I've got this bug that has just been eating up all of my eggplant, I don't know what to do about it. Can you give me some advice? That's what they're there for, is that kind of helping you along that problem solving. And so I'll be sure to put a couple of those resources, Sharonda, in my notes to you as well.
All right. And Donna Marsh said, thank you for the great ideas and energy you bring to the Learning Burst. And she does. She brings such wonderful energy. That's why I always have to have her, guys. I'm telling you.
You know what? I get it just from you all. I'm so inspired by all the gardening that you do with your littles, and what an amazing space and opportunity you're making for them. So thanks for all that you do.
Yes, and that's why I wasn't here last week. I got to be a part of site visits in Wilkesboro, and it was really, really exciting to see all the wonderful work that you all are doing. Next week, Caroline and I will be in Lee County and Moore County. So we're coming to everybody that wants us to come to them. So we'll be doing that for 3 days next week. And we're excited because everybody, you guys don't think you're doing anything, and you're doing so much. And we just appreciate it. And the fact that the children are outside, like last week, they were picking peaches off of a tree. The peaches were this little, because I have a basket in there and I ate some. They're this little, but they're the perfect size for their hands. So that's what it's all about. And they can pick it, wash it, and stand right there and eat a peach that's the right size for their little hands. And they were just out there talking about how many each of them had in their baskets. Really cool work that's going on, guys. And we just want to say thank you for that. Thank you, thank you. So if there are no other comments, if no one has any questions, and again, feel free to unmute yourselves too if you have some questions. But if no one does, we will end this week's Learning Burst and the Gardening Learning Burst series. We will pick back up next month at the beginning of August, the first Wednesday. And if I'm not mistaken, when we do that first one, it will be a cooking one with Michelle Estrada, and then we'll go into our racial equity ones. Awesome. Okay? So thank you again, everybody. Have a great day. Liz, thank you again as well.
Hello.
Yes.
Miss Houston need to speak with you. This is Estelle. Hold on for a second, please. Hi, I wasn't on the Learning Burst last week, but I watched the video of the entire Learning Burst, but I didn't get a certificate for it. How do I do that?
If you can email me, then I can forward your information on to Emma, who takes care of those for us.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharonda.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Barbara. Will you be sending us like emails to let us know the days you're coming to Lee County, or?
I'm thinking that the partnership was going to arrange everything, because we will be down there, I think Wednesday.
'Cause, you know,
It's between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm sorry. I know I leave on Monday. We don't return till Wednesday. So, but I think the partnership was trying to put together a schedule as to the date and time.
because I know
And I can
Patty just left last Friday from the partnership, so I might need to reach out
no.
to someone and see if they know something.
Okay. Okay, and I can look also, if you don't get anything that way from them, let
Uh-huh.
us know.
Okay,
But, hold on. I think it's Wednesday for you guys.
okay,
Yeah, we start on Wednesday for you, and we're gonna do all your centers on Wednesday.
okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Is it just her center or is it all centers?